Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, The Top 10 Things Clients Really Want by Cliff Quicksell. Today you're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit questions to Cliff by typing them into the questions pane on the control panel, and they will be answered either during the presentation or at the end. Now a little bit about Cliff. So Cliff Quicksell Jr. MAS Plus has been involved in the promotional products and sportswear industries for the past 35 years. During his tenure, he has achieved the MAS Plus professional designation, Master Advertising Specialist. He has been actively involved in PPAI, the International Trade Association for the Promotional Products Industry, serving on various committees as a facilitator at all PPAI and ASI shows, and as a member of PPAI's Ambassador Speakers Bureau for over 15 years. Now, for those who may not know, but I'm sure you're all aware, Cliff will be joining us at Convex this month, but I'll let him talk to you about that a little bit more when he comes on. But I did have a run through with Cliff a little bit earlier. He does have some severe thunderstorms over there, but we don't seem to be experiencing any issues in terms of audio quality. But if something were to happen, or if he does happen to drop out for all of a sudden, then that's why that is. Now, without further ado, I will welcome Cliff. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabina. I appreciate that. And thank you for everyone being here. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your lunchtime. In speaking to Sabina before the presentation began, we had a nice little chat. And she was telling me that people are incredibly busy there. And I get that because that's what we're experiencing here in the States as well. And this time of the year, it's really busy and ramping up. And, even though it's over the summer holidays here, it is still busy. So with that said, I want to keep this as very succinct as possible and just throw out there that if you have any questions or you want to have a conversation with me afterwards, just feel free to bash me an email. I have my phone number there as well on the title slide. You can email me and I'll have that information at the very end of this presentation. But, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have a question, I'm glad to help and have a nice conversation with you. Towards the end of this, I'll talk a little bit about Convex. I'm very excited about being there and meeting with everyone. So without further ado, let's just get cracking on this. It's pretty interesting. So years ago, I was doing some research and trying to figure out, what exactly is it that clients are looking for? I hear as I travel globally and speak to business groups both in Europe, and obviously in Australia, and all through North America and Canada and whatnot. And the reality is the commonality that we have in everywhere globally is that the things that we're going to talk about today, it's exactly what customers are looking for. They're looking for that connection. They're looking for that engagement. They're looking for that resource, that creative resource that can help them move the needle, so to speak. And so what's really interesting is that it's not something that's unique to Australia or New Zealand or the US or Canada. It's just not. I mean, it is, because I believe it's the humanality of it. It's the human nature of it that really is driving this whole process. So we're going to talk about these things. The premise or the impetus behind these top 10 things was an article that I read a bit ago in a magazine called B2B Magazine. And they asked chief marketing officers around the country, especially in the US, they're asking them, what is it? What are you looking for in a strategic partner? And it was really unique, the findings that they came up with. They asked over 4,500 CMOs or chief marketing officers, what is it exactly that you're looking for? And when we go through this, you'll be very surprised to see where the best price, quote unquote, is on this list. It'll surprise you where it sits. So without, let's just get cracking on this and get started, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. One of the first things that we want to look at is, number one, people are looking for a strong strategic thinker. And the information that I'm sharing with you today is not stuff that I have intellectually come up with, that I put together. This is actually information that they've asked your end buyers. What are you looking for in a strategic partner? What are you looking to accomplish? What are you looking for? What would make the ideal strategic partner? So as we tool through this, what I want you to really get into your head is that this is not something that I've put together based on academic study or anything like that. It's really end user feedback. So they want someone who's a strong strategic thinker. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be a strong strategic thinker? And one of the things that I have found across the board is that a lot of people are always talking, giving advice, and rarely listening. And I think to be a strong strategic thinker, you have to have a keen understanding of your market, their market, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper. But you have to have a keen understanding of those aspects, their market, what you do as a marketer and whatnot. And how do you meld all those together? You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. And if you don't have that strategy and plan, it's very tough to be a strategic thinker. And I find that when I've gone on sales calls, and I've gone on multiple sales calls, thousands and thousands of sales calls with both clients and my own staff, and it's amazing how quick to market people are in terms of offering suggestions and ideas on things that people can purchase in terms of product. And they don't really take the time to understand the customer. Understand the customer's needs, understand what the customer's really looking to accomplish. They do things at a surface level, and I think that creates a true detriment to most people. So to be a strong strategic thinker is critical. So, and I think that the way that you do that is by asking really good, solid questions. It's interesting that we need to be looking at, and I'll digress a little bit, that we need to really be looking at what's going on in our collective space. I had the pleasure, for those of you who know or don't know Paul Bellantone, he is the CEO of PPAI here in the States, and I was invited to a conference about strategic foresight, and we were talking about that. It was really interesting what came of that 2-day event. And we were talking about the disruptors in the industry. What are the things that are really going to be changing how we go to market in this place? And folks, you need to be thinking about this. How is this going to affect you? How is this going to be affecting your clients? What are the not only what, but who are the disruptors in the industry that are going to really make some significant changes? How do we get ahead of that curve? What are the things that we're going to do to make sure that we're strategically aligned with our customers, aligned with our businesses, so that we can in turn make a significant difference as we move forward? So being a strong strategic thinker, thinking both, I love this term. I had a buddy of mine that he was the best at this, and that is thinking micro and macro at the same time. The things that we do today, and think about what you do with your clients, the things that we do right now on a micro level, the suggestions that we make, the concepts that we come up with, how is that going to affect us long term? And the long-term things that we're thinking about strategically, how do those dynamics affect what we do on the short run, on the short term right now? So again, being a strong strategic thinker is the number one characteristic. Number two, clients are looking for understanding of the client's business. Now, For those of you who heard me speak before, you know I'm a big proponent about vertical markets and vertical market strategies. And that means, for those of you who may not be aware, you know, being an expert in multiple fields. You can't be an expert in 20 vertical markets, but I suggest to people, you know, look at 4 to 5 vertical markets that you can be an expert in, whether it be hospitality, business, you know, excuse me, uh, banking and finance, it could be athletics, it could be aerospace, but to be understand those particular businesses at a grassroots effort, you become a much stronger strategic partner for your clients. I know that as I was going through uh, growing my business when I had my distributor company, my marketing company years ago, it was really interesting that, you know, I was a generalist at one point, and generalists at some level don't get paid the same amount as people that are specialists or experts in a particular craft or a particular field. Um, I give you a great example of that. A buddy of mine had a young lady that was working for him that she was filing catalogs during the week. And her husband used to go to AKC events, or American Kennel Club events, where they used to show dogs. And she says, you know, I know a lot of people in that space. And would you have any objections to me selling promo products at those events? Now, I'm not a big fan of selling product. I think more on the creative side, but nonetheless, just to cite this example, this woman was given permission. Yeah, you can do that. She went out, she started marketing, talking to people. She understood the client's business. She understood, she could talk the language, etc. And what happened with that? She wound up doing part-time on the weekends. She was doing over $50,000 in commissions on the weekends, working 26 weekends in the course of a year. She made over $50,000 on a 50-50 split. It was crazy. So again, understanding the client's business really helped exponentially grow her business because she could speak the language and things of that nature. So having a keen understanding of clients' businesses and what they do, the nuances within those businesses, really makes a tremendous difference. The third thing that your clients are looking for is not only understanding the business from the outside view, but what about having experience in that business? Having experience and actually potentially working in that space at some level. So when my clients come to me and say, okay, well, that's great. How do I know, you know, what are the best markets to go after? Because I've never done this vertical market structure at all. So what's interesting is we would begin by asking, you know, what is your passion? Like the woman that had the passion with the AKC events. That's what she loved to do. That's one of the things that was passionate to her. And that passion goes an incredibly a long way. So, you know, we would say to folks, you know, what is it that, what do you have, where do you have a background? Where do you have a passion? And let's start there. Now, I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I had my marketing company, one of the strongest vertical markets that I worked in was hospitality. I had a background in it. I worked in the restaurant business. I worked for an Anheuser-Busch brewery, a distributor company. I was an executive chef for a while. So I understood that market. And having that understanding or working in that space, once again, you can speak the language, you understand the challenges that they're going through. And what does that do? That builds credibility, it builds loyalty, and it builds some camaraderie at some level, because people know that you understand the things that they're going through. So when you think about this, if you buy into the concept of this vertical market structure and understanding how that works, it really does. It can absolutely propel your business to a different level. I know, and I use this example not only for myself, but other people that I consult with and folks that I work with. Literally, people that have done this have just seen exponential growth in their business. It's crazy because these people in this space, they talk to one another. Where do you get your stuff done? Where do you get your creative stuff done? Where do you get your apparel done? Where did you get that creative marketing campaign, that trade show giveaway? Where did you get that done? Well, I use XYZ. They really know our business, etc. And trust me, folks, when I tell you, it goes a long, long way. So I encourage you to look at your let's say for those of you who have had, and most of us have had life before the promo business, but look at what you've done before. Look at your passion. Look at what you love doing. It could be AKC events. It could be going to horse races. It could be animals. So veterinarian, whatever the case may be, let's look at that at a different level. And again, if you have some questions on this, let's have a chat on the phone or via email, and let's really chat it up a little bit so you get a better understanding of that. But having experience in the client's business is not something that I know that it works for me when I was out there, but that's not Cliff. This is what end users are looking for. We want to know that you know our business, you understand our business, you've worked in this business. And so if you can do that, it really does help considerably. Number 4 is excellent creative work. Now, this is kind of I don't want to say a funny topic for me, but when I talk to folks, it's interesting when I hear people gripe about, I took that person a creative idea. Well, what was it? Well, it was a bag from Gemline, or it was a pen from Bic. I'm like, well, why is that creative? How was that creative? Well, it was my idea. No, absolutely, it was not your idea. You just stumbled on the product. And if we can start looking beyond the product and start looking at ways that we can take that same product and do things unique with it, develop a theme around it, creatively package it, a unique way that we can actually distribute it. And I'm going to show you a great example of this when we get to number 7 about driving measurement and how important that is. But clients, they want to make a difference. Don't you, as a person, a marketer that's out there and you're talking to your customers, don't you want to make a difference? Don't you want to be different? Don't you want to be perceived by your end buyer as being different than your competitors in your space? Of course you do. Well, they're no different. They don't want to go to a trade fair. Next thing you know, the creative quote unquote yo-yo that you showed them, they find that 2 other people are using the same thing. That's not innovative. That's not creative. So I want you to stop for a moment and think about, how can we take this amazing industry that we have, and how can we create magic? Truly, and I don't say that lightly, how do we create magic for our customers where they can see amazing results for the things that we put together, and that we do creative work? Now, I've been to Australia many times, and I've seen some of the work that many of you have put together, and it is amazing. It is creative. But I think more and more now, as our space starts to grow, and more people become involved in it, and you have more basic people coming in here where price is really, it's more commodity driven. What are those differentiators that you create? What are those things that you do that are so unique and different and engaging that makes the customer want to pick up the phone? And what do you do for the customer to help them to get their customers to pick up the phone, to be engaging, to do things uniquely and different? The one thing that I have found is that I do not hold the holy grail on creative ideas. But I do know one thing, that for the most part, I think a lot differently than most people, but you have the ability to do this. My friends, you have the ability to create things that are not in the catalog, that are different, that are so unique, and engaging and mind-blowing. And again, I don't use that term lightly. Some of the things that, we're going to share when I'm at Convex, I'm going to be sharing some really cool case histories that you'll sit there and go, wow, that's pretty amazing. And the most importantly, it's what the clients care about. It's what the clients say about this. And if it causes a client to react in a positive way, pick up the phone, call you, engage you, want to have a meeting with you, that's the win. That's the differentiator. Instead of just being the run-of-the-mill person that's just out there selling product. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. You can still do that. But how do we notch this up a level so that we can be perceived so much more? And I tell you this, and I know this firsthand, not only from myself, but from folks that I work with and my peers that actually buy into it as well. The profits are exponentially higher when you do creative work. I'll give you an example. There's a guy that I work with here in the States. He has bought into the concept of this many, many years ago. No, actually, better example, a gentleman that I know in Canada. I met with him about 20 years ago when I was speaking. He goes, man, I got to start doing this. And I know that I have it in me. And he does. He is one of the most creative guys that I know. But it was all latent. It was dormant because he was so fixated on selling stuff that he was not really using his God-given talent to be as creative as he could. And what was interesting about this is here's a guy now that probably turns away business, writes about $1.2, $1.3 million in sales annually, takes off a month a year with his wife to Bali or Fiji or whatever, and he's writing at 61 and 62% gross profit consistently. And it's because he doesn't do just the product, he does the creative work. And guess what? Once again, this is what clients are looking for. They're looking for something a little bit different. So when we look at number 5, this is, I think, at some level, a bit of an overused term, but this is what clients are looking for. Someone that has the ability to think outside the box. And this goes back to what we were talking about being a strategic thinker, and that is really asking the right questions, peeling the layers of the onion back to understand what is it that the client is really trying to accomplish. What are they trying to do? What would success look like to these folks? And if you're asking these questions and really uncovering, and you're going to get a lot of pushback, because people are going to go, well, I'm just looking for an item. Yeah, but I'd be doing you a disservice if that was all that I was doing. Let's talk about this. It takes time. Trust me when I tell you, it takes time to convert people, especially folks that you've been working with on a regular basis for years. But I encourage you to start implementing some of these tactics about asking deeper questions, understanding exactly what they're trying to accomplish, what their end goal is. Why would somebody buy coffee mugs to hand out at a trade show? Just to do it for branding? What's the goal? Are you trying to get appointments? What are you trying to do? So by this ability for you, not only you to think outside the box, but engage your customers at a level to get them to start thinking differently about how to utilize the tools that you bring to the table. You have the ability to be absolutely amazing to your customers. You have the ability to create things that are so out of the box, that are not in a catalog, that don't have the ABC PQR codes on them, that are where you're making amazing margins. Amazing margins. This is when we talk about thinking outside the box, it goes back to what I was alluding to at the beginning of this presentation about going to that seminar when we were talking about, strategic thinking and whatnot, how to be a strategic thinker. And again, it's how do you disrupt the industry? How do you create the disrupt? There's many disruptors that are out there right now. Let's go through the list real quick. Amazon right now is starting to sell promo products in the States. I don't know if it's hit the I don't know if it's hit Australasian market yet or not. Amazon is coming into the space. Walmart is in the space. Costco is in the space. These people are providing products. They are tech-driven companies that they can easily be. How easy would it be for Amazon to become a distributor in this industry? How easy? Wouldn't be difficult at all. So they're a disruptor. How do you become a disruptor where you're thinking differently, critically, helping a customer build something that they never find in a catalog, but yet has amazing results? I'm telling you, you have the ability to do this. And again, when we're at Convex, we're going to talk a lot more about this. Number 6, and this is really interesting. This is having proven success with clients. And you can see how these all at some level kind of dovetail together. The reality is, I've had customers say to me, and I'm sure you may have as well, and that is, what have you done for other companies like mine? And if you're a generalist, and this is why I'm such a believer in vertical markets, if you're a generalist and you're doing everything for everybody else, you really don't have much to fall back on. But if you can say to a customer, I actually do work with multiple people in your space, and these are some of the things that we've done, and these are some of the campaigns and programs that we have put together. Obviously, you have to protect some of those ideas. I get that. But again, being able to show the success that you've had with other people, this is what your clients are looking for. They want to know, do you have an understanding of my business? Can you help me grow? Can you help me achieve my goals? And the biggest challenge I think that most of us, well, this industry as a whole has in a global sense, is that we're so fixated on selling the stuff. And the reality is anybody can sell the stuff. The 4imprints of the world, the branders of the world, and now the Amazons of the world, they can all sell the stuff. But where is the differentiator? Where is the thing? What is the thing that matters? Helping a customer achieve goals. And most people don't ask those questions. So if you can have success with customers, and look, I know in some markets, I've talked to a few of your fellow distributors over there in the Australasian market, and I'm pretty good friends with a few of my buddies over there. And I understand that different markets are a little hesitant about, well, let me just say, it appears that it comes across as, almost like bragging. But at the end of the day, I think that you have to understand it's important for you to tout your successes. Show people, I mean, this is how you live, this is how you eat, this is how you go on vacation. So being able to do those things, showing people, I'm proud of what I've done. And I think that's the difference, is being proud of the things that you put together, the creative stuff that you do for your customers, those are the successes. And guess what? This is what customers want. They want to know, what have you done for other people? What have you done that's been successful? Because you know what? Anybody can sell a promotional product. It's easy. I remember my 24-year-old son one day heard me on the phone with with a consulting client, and he goes, I don't get that they don't understand what you're saying. Why can't they see that that what they have the ability to do is far more far-reaching than just thumbing through a catalog or sending somebody to a website, doing things different. This industry is, in the next 5 years, is going to take I believe, going to take a whole different track. And if you're not creating difference or differentiators, if you will, with your customers, I think that a lot of people will be left behind. So again, a lot of these things are philosophical from my standpoint, but 36 years in this business and seeing the transition and being able to talk to people on a global level and seeing that everybody has similar situations, similar challenges and problems, I look at it, how do we break out of that mold? And I think one of these things that we can do is look at the successes that we have with customers, tout those successes, share those successes with people, because people want to be associated with people that are successful. It's really simple. The number 7 thing, and this is one of, I would say, of all the things, not only being able to think creatively, but this is, I would probably say, out of everything here, this is, in my estimation, is the most critical, and that is the ability to measure ROI and ROO. And let me explain. I'm certain everybody on this call understands the concept of ROI, return on investment. But the big buzz now is ROO, return on objective. So if I do a return on investment, I spend $1,000 and I get $20,000 back, my ROI is 19 grand. That's what I achieved. By spending X, I get X in return. But ROO is the money that I spend to do something to achieve a goal. What does it cost me to achieve that goal? What is that cost related? So I can now understand whether or not it's been effective. So if I spend, and the challenge that we have here is many of your accounting people that, purchasing, this resonates well with them. Marketing, it resonates well with them as too. But I will tell you that if you can embrace this has been, I mean, even to this day, as a consultant, speaker, writer, and whatnot, my ability to drive ROO, what does it cost me to get a new keynote address? What does it cost me to, when I'm helping people break into a customer, if they send out 25 pieces, what does it cost for them to get that initial appointment? Your customers are looking for this. In fact, Chief marketing officers are being compensated on their ability to drive measurement. Think about that. Do you know, in the United States, I don't know how it is in Australia, but in the United States, the average tenure for a marketing director at a company is about 18 months. Because the lines at one time were blurred between sales and marketing. It was like they were at odds with one another. Well, marketing didn't do their job. Well, sales didn't follow what we said. Now, they're melding together. Sales and marketing are working in tandem with one another at a major, major level. And measurement is critical at every point. Because why? Budgets are tight. Budgets are tight, and people want to know, if I'm spending X, what am I getting in return for that? And so this is very, very critical. Let me give you a great example of this. Now, this was a case history that I'm going to share with you of a client that I worked. Some of you that are on the call may have seen this before, but it really drives the point home of what I'm talking about. I had a tennis club that I used to attend, and I really wanted them as a customer. And in asking the questions, what are your greatest challenges here at this club? I guess you could believe anything that's membership driven is retaining members and keeping new members, because you're going to have people that are going to come in, they're going to taper off. So there's attrition there. So how do we continue to keep that pipeline full? Now, I want to explain this to you so you really understand the difference between just selling somebody a product and coming up with something that's really an innovator that helps people measure the effectiveness of their marketing. So I went to this marketing director and I said, "What's your biggest challenge?" And she says, "Well, so we identified the challenge. We need to keep the pipeline full. We need new members. We have people coming in and coming off. So what's the average time span that a member would stay here?" She goes, "Well, on average, it's about 6 years." I said, "Okay. So what are you currently doing to solicit and gain new members?" And she says, "Well, we actually send out a brochure about once a quarter to 5,000 people within the geographical area of about 50 miles. And I said, "Well, how's that working?" And she said, "Well," and statistically, her statistics are spot on. Statistically, we get about a 2% response rate. Okay, I said, so of 5,000 people, 2%, so you're getting 100 leads. Now, remember what we talked about, return on objective. What was the objective? The objective was not necessarily, I mean, you need leads, but the overall objective was to get new customers, new members. And she said, well, of the 100 leads, we would probably secure about 2 new members. I said, that's fantastic. I said, so you spend $5,000, get 2 new members, and it costs you $2,500 in acquisition for a new member. No, 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 that's not true. Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm not Archimedes, but I can tell you that if you take $5,000 and divide it by 2, it's $2,500. So she tried to justify it by saying, but here's the thing. The people to join the club, it cost $3,000. Now, this was some years ago, so I don't know how it is now, but it cost $3,000. And we told you that the average person will stay here for a period of about 6 years. And we know from statistics that they will spend on average about $3,000 a year here at the club. So if you really do the math is $3,000 a join, $3,000 a year over 6 years, that's 18 plus the 3, that's a $21,000 projected run rate on average. So spending $2,500, we get $21,000. I said, okay, fair enough. So you based on these numbers, you're spending $5,000, getting 2 new members, so you're generating 42 grand for a $5,000 spend. That's right. So let me ask you a question. And this is, once again, digging deep, asking questions, and getting the client to think a little bit differently. They don't, sometimes just because somebody has the title marketing director doesn't necessarily mean, and this is no degradation to anyone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a keen understanding of what marketing is all about. But that's your job. It's your job to help them. And so when I asked the client, I said, so you're telling me you send this out to 5,000 people within a 50-mile radius, and I don't mean anything negative by this, but there is a retirement home there. Not only retirement home, but that's for the elderly and infirmed, people that are in bed, on crutches, on walkers. Do they get it? She goes, yeah. I said, don't you think that's wasted money? I mean, seriously, I don't see people out here on walkers playing tennis. So don't you think that it should be more targeted? And she goes, well, who are you talking about? I said, I don't know. And maybe people that play tennis? She goes, well, how do we get a list like that? So we solicited the USTA. We said, these are the demographics. We knew that the male female was a mixture. It didn't really matter, but we did know that the age requirement was between 35 and 70 years old, or 65 years old rather. And we also understood that they had to live within a 50-mile radius of the club, and that the median income of that person had to be between $60,000 and $75,000 a year because of the expense. So we took that information and fed it to the USTA, and we came back with a list of 300 people. They were sending out to 5,000. It cost them $1 per printed brochure in the mailing to send this out. So it was $1 per person. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so you're sending this out once again to people that will probably never, ever, ever come and play tennis. But these folks that we're sending them to had the income, were demographically right, and guess what? They played tennis because they were a part of USTA. And what was interesting is we mailed this particular piece that you see here on the screen. On the front of the box, it says, the Aspen Hill Club is serving up a great offer. And you open the box and it says, the ball is in your court. So we had some things that the Aspen Hill, as you see in the top lid, things that the Aspen Hill Club actually did, the different benefits that there were to be in the club. And then we had a little bit of other information there under the ball is in your court. But the interesting thing too is we did a graphic of a tennis racket. We put a ball in there. Now this ball says Wilson 4 on it, but it actually had the logo of the club on there. And then inside we put a plastic membership card as well. And that membership card actually had the recipient's name embossed on the card. a special number on there and said, you are an exclusive member at the Aspen Hill Club for 1 week. Call us up and let us know which week you want to come. And we want you to play tennis. We want you to meet the members, and it's all free. And this was their invite package. Now, we wanted to do this for a reason. We wanted, just like if you were at you go to buy a car, and the dealer says to you, take the car home for a weekend and just enjoy it, and you let your wife or your husband drive it when you go drive around, and just tell me what you think of it. Bring it back on Monday or Sunday night. They want you to have people see you. They want people to comment, hey, that looks good. Well, that car looks really nice. They don't want you, what do you want to sit there and say, well, I got to take it back on Monday? No, they want you to experience it. That's exactly what we wanted these folks to do here. We wanted them to experience what it was like to be in the club, mingle with other members, play tennis, enjoy the atmosphere, smell the aroma of the club, the popcorn, the camaraderie, the cocktail parties, and all those type of things. This particular piece, for the same $5,000 budget, generated 75 new members, or a 25% response rate, or excuse me, ROO. The objective, to get new members. 75 new members out of 300 were generated. Now you think about that for a minute. Here's what didn't change. It cost $3,000 for each of those people to join the club. The average attrition rate, or the average run rate, if you will, for spend was still $3,000 a year times 6, or 18,000. When you do the math with that, before they would send the brochure out, they'd get 2 new members, $42,000 in return. In this particular case, they were getting 75 new members times 21,000 is $1.5 million projected run rate for the same budget dollars. When you can articulate to a customer how you can take something so common as simple packaging, and this is all promo products here, folks, a box, a plastic membership card, an imprinted tennis ball, and come up with creative copy, theme, a way to implement, deliver it into the market space, ways to follow up and track it. That's a differentiator. That's what clients want. Do you think that the customer wants to spend $5,000 now and get $42,000 in projected run rate back? Or would they like to spend the same $5,000 and have potentially $1.5 million in revenue coming in? I don't have to see any of your faces right now. I know that you understand that that is the difference. Same budget dollars. So when you want to do something unique and different, help drive measurement, drive revenue, show this, guess what? This is amazing. And you know what's interesting? We did this in the States. I know they play tennis in Australia and in New Zealand. Could you not do this same identical thing there? And if we know that people won't travel more than 50 miles to a club, it may be different there. It may be 20 miles. But could you replicate this over and over and over again across Australia, in Brisbane, in Sydney? Could you do that? Certainly you could. If you were trying to drive membership to a golf club, could you take the golf ball out, put a piece of AstroTurf in there, put a cup in there, and put a golf ball in there, and just change the messaging a little bit? Could you do that? Of course you could. And this, my friends, is where I'm saying this is where the difference is. This is where the difference lies, on how you can help your customers achieve things that buying something out of a catalog, they just can't do. They just can't do it. And again, I know that you have it in you to do this. And again, it's almost like the concept is about like riding a bike. When you first got on it, you fell off, you scratched your knees, your ankles, your chin, and all that. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. If somebody called me right now One of my customers said, I have a client that's looking for a product to give away at a trade show. I'd say, I'm just not the guy to talk to. But if you want to know how to draw more traffic to the trade show, because that's what really matters to the customer, that's what really matters to your customers, to bring traffic to their booth, the right traffic, not some tchotchke that they can put on the desk that every scooper in the world that comes by can just rake into their bag. No, they want to bring the best people, qualified buyers there so they can have a meaningful conversation. How do we do that? And each of you on this call, every one of you on this call has the ability to do that. Number 8, clear articulation of your vision. So exactly, what is it that you do? What makes you different once again? And how do you articulate that? And what's important about this articulating your company's vision is, how does that benefit or positively and in a meaningful way affect the customer? I see people all the time in their brochures, on their websites, talking about how groovy they are, how great they are. But nowhere does it generally say, this is what we do, and this is how it benefits you. This is our message, and this is what we do. If you look at my website, one of the things that I say on my website is, and my vision, is to squash the mediocrity that runs rampant through small businesses. That's my goal. My goal is to help small businesses understand that you can be better. You can be greater than you currently think you can be, because we become complacent, and that complacency just festers into mediocrity. And we don't have to do that. So that's my goal. That's my goal. What is your goal? I ask you to think about that. What is your goal for your customers? Is it to get them the right promo product for, that on target, at a really good price, and we have phenomenal customer service? Or is it deeper than that? And I think as you start to see the Gen Y, the Gen X, and now this new Gen Z that they're talking about now, that are your buyers, what do they want? They want success. They want to understand that you understand their businesses. And I think that this gives us a huge opportunity if we parlay it in the right direction. Number 9, resources to grow with the client. This is another thing that people are looking for. And what does that mean, resources to grow with the client? A lot of people think that that means money in the bank, but resources go a lot deeper than that. Are you properly staffed? Do you empower your staff to make decisions? Do you give them the tools in terms of education, continued education, so that they can actually grow their business? I know that APPA does a phenomenal job of putting together education. They have a certification program. Do you make it a part of your plan that your staff has to become certified in this industry? They have to understand the nuances of this. There is a company here in the States that's now was purchased by PCNA. It was called Bullet Line. Bullet Line years ago made it a requirement as a supplier that as a customer service rep, you had to have a CAS, or Certified Advertising Specialist certification, within 1 year, or you couldn't work there. And why is that important? Because if my staff understands the nuances of the business and how it works at a grassroots level, they can be more agile, they can be more helpful, and they can be a better strategic partner with everyone that they touch, that would call them up on a customer service level. So again, those resources go far beyond cash. It's important. So we talk about staff. What about your tech requirements? Are you up to speed, or are you way behind the curve? And I would encourage you to consider that. There's an interesting story along these lines. I had a friend of mine, when company stores came out, and although this was some time ago, it really resonates to the point here. And she talked to one of her customers, and the customer said, I'm really looking at doing a company store. Can you help me? She goes, we've never done one before, but we'll do the research, and we'll be glad to help you out with it. And now this company was doing $1 million in turnover with her a year. And the buyer said to her, we're not looking for someone that can walk through the door with us. We're looking for someone that can take us by the hand and lead us, that they understand what's going on. So when it comes to education, knowing the things that are taking place, I know that product safety is a huge issue here in the States, and I know it's becoming a much larger issue in the Australasian market as well. If you're not, this is a phenomenal resource. Being able to have every one of your staff understand the nuances of product safety, how it relates. So why? So that they can educate the end user. Those resources that you can dedicate, and some of these things, folks, don't cost you hardly, if anything, nothing, maybe nothing. But it's time, energy, technology, belief in staff, engagement, having the right staff doing the right job, empowerment. All of those resources help the customer at a level that is benign to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it makes a tremendous difference in how people perceive your business and how, for those that want to continue to work with you. And number 10, ability to execute an integrated strategy. What does that mean? That means taking all the things that we talked about, putting it all together. How do we take every concept that we talked about here together, and how do we execute that strategy, track, follow up that strategy? I'm a big believer that if you're not creating systems for your customer, and that example that I showed you, and I can go back to this example here, this was a system. This was a system that we did with the customer. We showed them how to systematically put this into play, how to follow up with it, what the strategy was, how to, once you got the person on the call, we just didn't create the piece and say, here you go. We helped them with the strategy. And maybe you need to start thinking of yourself as, to get ahead of the curve and be a disruptor. Well, maybe we create ourselves as like boutique agencies that are focused on particular vertical markets that we own, that our name becomes viral in those spaces. Maybe we need to start looking at things at that level. And I think when you do, again, heads will turn and changes will come to you like you can't even believe. Lastly, and my final thoughts here as we wrap this up, because again, I want to try to be mindful of your time today, is that develop the right connections early in the relationships with your current clients, and look at ways that you can retool the way you're going to market. You may go through this entire list and say, Cliff, you may call me up and say, or you see me at Convex, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. But you may look at this and say, I do 9 out of those things, but the 10th one I haven't done. And maybe it's that 10th thing that'll make a huge difference. Maybe you're doing none of these, and maybe you do 2, and it exponentially moves the needle for you. Whatever the case is, I implore you, I encourage you to take this information, the other information that APPA so wisely puts together for you, the things that you read, and apply these things for the betterment of your company. By doing that, you will increase your credibility with your customers. You'll increase your credibility with your suppliers, and suppliers, you'll increase your credibility with the distributors. You'll increase the credibility with your staff, which in turn will create loyalty, where price becomes less and less of an issue. And lastly, and most importantly to me, is, increase your profitability. I heard a quote from someone years ago, and people that, like I said, have heard me speak before know that I'm a prophet for profit. And the accountant said that sales feed egos and profits feed families. And I couldn't believe, I believe that at such a high level, that by doing some of the things that we talked about here today, by just changing a little bit about the way we go to the market and the things that we do, folks, there's nothing, in my opinion, you could easily be making 60 and 70% profit on a consistent basis, and your customers are going to gladly pay for it. It's very difficult to do that in a product consumer-based commodity sale. But when we start to elevate the game for our customers and do things a little bit differently, innovatively, and creatively, guess what? The gloves are off. So I encourage you to take these ideas that we shared today, try to apply them to the best of your ability throughout the course of your job. And again, I just want you to know how, and I mean this sincerely, for people that know me know this is true. I sincerely am grateful and privileged to be able to share information. I don't own the Holy Grail on everything. I really don't. I'm sharing and giving you information that I know that has worked for me over the course of the years. And as things change, I adapt and I change and things like that, things that I've learned from your peers globally. And a lot of this stuff is, people will share stuff with me and I'll go, wow, that's absolutely brilliant. I never even thought about that. And I think that if we can share that information and give back on a consistent basis, guess what? The world, as they say, is our oyster. We can manage change at a very, very high level. So with that said, I want to thank you. I also, as I close this up, I know Sabina will be on in a second here. I want to invite you to please, if you haven't signed up for Convex, I'd love to see you there. My wife and I show up there around the 20th, and I'll be there on the 22nd doing a keynote address on differentiation and innovation, how to stand out in a shrinking world. And then I'm doing 2 master classes, one that same day on the 22nd. It's a 2-hour master class on, I believe that the one that I'm doing first is on developing a strong vertical market strategy, and we'll go into depth on how that all works. And lastly, on the 23rd, I'll be doing another 2-hour master class on transitioning from a promotional consultant to a promotional consultant. This is not going to, the 2 master classes aren't going to be more lecture based. We really want a lot of interaction. We want questions. We want to create dialogue. We want people to talk within the audience. And I tell you what, when we start doing that, we can certainly, and I don't mean this lightly, we can actually change the world. So I encourage you to be there. I know that Sabina has told me that there's limited space there, but I would love to see you there. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at Convex. And once again, thank you very much for allowing me into your offices this afternoon for lunch. And I hope that you take away a great deal of information. And I'll turn it back over to Sabina. Thank you. Sabina, are you there? Well, folks, I don't hear Sabina, so
sorry, you there?
That's
sorry,
okay.
I'll start again. I pressed the incorrect button there. So thank you again, Cliff. I was actually just saying that your presentation then was just a small glimpse of what we can expect from you at Convex this year. So as you did mention, we do have limited seating for those master classes, and they are filling up quickly. So if you haven't registered yet, please do contact us here at APPA. Yeah, we're really looking forward to having Cliff attend in just a couple of weeks' time. And just in regards to Convex in general, now registrations are closing soon. So if you haven't registered as a delegate, please do that soon as well. If you do have any questions on Cliff's webinar following this session, please do feel free to reach out to either Cliff or myself. So his details are up on the screen. I think Cliff, we do have one more webinar this year with you, so very, very lucky to have you back again one more time this year. Tomorrow you will receive a follow-up email with a link to view today's recording, and I believe we also have a slide deck for you as well. So on behalf of Cliff and APPA, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great afternoon. And for those of you attending Convex, we'll see you in just under 2 weeks. Have a good day.
Continue good selling, folks. Look forward to seeing you.